already showed you guys the Yugoslav attack setup, and it's a setup for white. And I showed you guys how to defend against it for black. We want to play h5, and you want to keep the h-file closed at all costs. Because if this gets opened up, white can even sacrifice a rook, sacrifice the exchange, take the knight, open things up, and still get a checkmate. So very, very dangerous attack. So I want to show you now from white's point of view. So if you're playing white against the dragon, how can you most effectively open up their king side and get that coveted bishop trade and the big attack? It's really fun to play for both sides. So I'm going to show you guys how to play the Yugoslav attack for white and try to get a checkmate on the king here. So, of course, we know the normal moves are going to happen. Trade, trade, trade. Go through those. Go into the dragon variation. Castle, castle. Bishop out. Say we move our king over. Okay, we're not going to show the Chinese line anymore. We're just going to show the regular main line. So in this case, we'll assume that black plays this queen out there. And in this case, if we want to attack quickly, we're not even going to bother with playing the bishop to f4, which is actually, that variation in many lines is known as a Fischer-Sozin attack. We're going to look more at that later in the course and the very, very best ways to play off of this bishop. And one of the reasons I already mentioned that we put that there is to avoid this pawn coming down here. We're just going to go straight for the jugular. And we're going to play either g4 or h4. So a lot of times we play h4 because we're just trying to go for speed here. And we're going to look to get this big attack. And actually, if we're going for speed, we may not even move the king over. We may just leave it on c1. But it's just prudent to have it there, and it's usually worth moving it over and using one move to do that. If black knows how to defend, as we know, they're going to play h5. We're going to immediately go here and play g4 in many cases. And even though, if you notice, they have 1, 2, 3 pieces on this, like takes, takes, let's say they take here, it might be premature because now we can't quite push this pawn forward. They could take it. We could look at maybe sacrificing the exchange. It looks like in this case we probably were a little bit premature. We want to do one more thing before we play this move. We want to move this bishop this time to e2. Okay, so that attack probably would have failed and black would have defended and then counterattacked us. But by moving the bishop to e2, now we are ready to attack here. Let's say they move their rook over to either this spot or this spot. Either place is typical. They may do that. We're going to attack anyway. And now, if they take, let's say, any move order, basically, if they take it, we're gonna take here. And if we go here and he takes it with the bishop, now we can sacrifice the exchange because we have this trade coming. If he moves the rook over, now it's really dangerous. We have checks, we have the queen coming, and it's really, really dangerous. We may or may not get a checkmate here, but we're going to get a really dangerous attack. I'm not spending a lot of time calculating this, but there's a lot of good things that can happen by this type of a setup. Okay, we can even do something like this, make that queen move back, take this pawn. It's very difficult for black. They're just going to have to defend now. We have a lot of options here, and maybe we're going to get a checkmate. Just notice this knight here is hanging. So we would probably want to move this knight here. And that's a good place to put him anyway, because now we have more threats, and the knight's in a good position, and the queen can no longer defend this pawn. And so we're going to get a big attack, even though we had to sacrifice material. That's just one example. But the king's on the run, and we're going to have a big attack. That's just one example. Okay? And they might not like that, and they may be scared of that. Another thing we could do, besides immediately playing g4, is that we can now go to try to trade off this bishop. Since the rook hasn't been moved, he can't just tuck it. Like we said, if they lose the exchange, they just lose material. And so there's really not much you can do. They'll probably want to move his rook out anyway. Now we trade it off, and now we play this move. And if takes, we also, you just have to calculate. We also, instead of taking back like I just showed, we can just push this pawn. And now if he says, oh, it's fine, now we can sacrifice the exchange this way and do something like this. Very dangerous. Bring our rook over here, and now his king's in trouble. He's going to probably want to tuck it back. And now we can take this way. This, check. In this case, it'd be checkmate. So there's lots and lots of dangerous things that can happen, and a lot of times we can sacrifice a rook to open this up. It's very, very dangerous. I mean, those are just a couple examples. There's many, many different combinations of moves depending on what your opponent decides to do. There's a lot of calculation involved. So once you get to a position, even this position, like once you're here, you got to calculate a lot. If you play g4, they have 3 different options of taking that. Probably they'll take it first with a pawn because it's defended by a pawn. But you got to calculate. Do you try to trade off the bishop first? Do you play g4 first? Do you move the rook over first? Maybe instead you go here, give him time to do his thing, and now you've got another piece defending this. So now you can just take it maybe. See, now you would win a piece. So obviously that makes it strong. You're not sacrificing anything, and your attack is still coming. And so it's really dangerous. They got to figure out what are they going to do. Probably they won't take it now. They can't take it. They have to just hold. And then you're going to be in a situation where, depending on what they do, let's say they push this pawn forward, which is pretty typical. I can't take it because it's defended. Now, if you take here prematurely, they can just take back, and there's nothing you can do immediately. You can maybe push this pawn forward and attack the knight, which would be really dangerous. He can attack your knight. Maybe you move back. You trade off this knight. Oh wait, you move back here, and that gives him time to do some stuff like this. You don't want this trade to happen. I'm just showing you guys some examples. Who knows? But now we have this threat, take this knight, but this is one of the reasons why the queen's over here. The queen can defend. So again, you're going to see a lot of different variations, a lot of really dangerous stuff going on for both sides, and so it's very, very interesting. You're never going to have the exact same game, but you're going to have a really similar position with really similar goals for each side. So the Yugoslav attack is very dangerous, it's very effective, and if black doesn't play this move right here, this key move, h5, it's really, really dangerous. Let's say, for example, he doesn't do that. He just goes ahead and plays some normal move. Now our attack is going to be even stronger. Let's just say he goes here because he's going to start a pawn storm. And we don't want to play this move here and knock this knight off. We don't want him to be able to close the bishop. We want to go here to h5 and open the position. Okay? Now, if he continues to ignore us and just do his thing on the other side, which a lot of opponents will do, they'll think, oh, it's not too dangerous, I'm going to attack him. Well, it's going to be harder for them. We're going to, in this case, usually you can either sacrifice exchange immediately, as I already said, because now the h file is open, or you might want to take one move to move this bishop over here. Although if you do that, the knight can come down. So again, you have to calculate. But let's say we take this, take this. Now it looks like we sacrifice something for no immediate attack, but there are lots of things we can do that will lead to an attack. Let's just say we want to move this queen back somewhere. Now we can move, like, for example, this queen over here, attack this pawn. There's really not much that he can do to defend that pawn, and so he's going to be looking like, what can he do? What can he do? Maybe he'll want to put his knight over here, and now we're going to look to, well, we can take this pawn right here. We sacrificed an exchange, but we opened up the king side. We already won one pawn back. It's very dangerous. He's going to have to play defense now. He won an exchange, but he's going to have to play defense now. And we're going to bring more pieces into the attack, and it's going to be, you know, an interesting game. See, can we checkmate him now? Can we trade off this bishop now? Maybe, maybe not. And so that's just kind of a really quick overview of how the many ways that a Yugoslav attack can lead to a really big position through a sacrifice, or in many cases it will lead to an outright checkmate if your opponent doesn't play it very well. So it's a fun position to play. Say he goes here, doesn't want to trade, fine. Instead of sacrificing this, let's see, instead of playing this move which I just showed, we can do something different. Instead, let's say we move this queen over immediately, and we don't make the knight move. Instead, we try to make this knight move by moving these pawns forward. Say, for example, something like this. We'll just leave that knight there. Go here. Doesn't matter if he takes his pawn. The whole goal for us is to get a checkmating attack. So we're even going to leave maybe pieces hanging in order to get a checkmating attack and trade off these pieces. It's just an example. Just want to show you how dangerous it is. Check. Now there's nothing you can do. It's checkmate. It's just really easy to make a mistake defending as black, especially if you don't play that h5 move right away. So if you're playing for black, you got to play h5 right here. And if you're playing for white, you want to open up the H file. That's what you're trying to do. And there's many different ways to try to do it, as I've just shown. And if black makes one tiny mistake in the defense, he will probably get checkmated or lose material and lose in an endgame. So the Yugoslav attack is very, very dangerous. And in later lectures, we're going to look at the English attack, which is almost the same exact setup for white as the Yugoslav attack, except for it works against the Najdorf and against the Scheveningen. And it's a similar way to play. So for white, you can play against a Sicilian in almost the exact same setup, no matter what they do. So it's a good thing to know for white. And so it just shows you how rich and deep this opening goes for both sides.